The hidden physics breaking NFL bodies. Peter Cowan tells the full story here on Quantum Healthy. Early 2026, a tweet explodes, reaching 22 million views. NFL fans had been asking the same question for years. What is happening to the San Francisco 49ers? Unprecedented soft tissue injuries, non-contact tendon ruptures, a football player named Dre Greenlaw's Achilles snapping as he jogged onto the field, not off, at the Super Bowl. It just didn't add up. Then Peter Cowan, a software engineer, citizen scientist, applied quantum biologist, did something radical. He simply measured the environment. What did he find sitting next to the 49ers training facility? A massive power station. And the readings, elevated AC magnetic fields at levels no other team endures, chronic ELF exposure with direct biological consequences. The team brought in their own expert. Peter was quickly debunked. Case closed. Except it wasn't. Peter had written a series of Substack essays going far deeper, and many like us looked at these and read these, and they mapped the cascade from electromagnetic assault to mitochondrial dysfunction, to cellular dehydration, to what Peter calls the hidden pathway to collagen fragility. This isn't just about one team. It's about what's systematically weakening athletes' connective tissue in a world saturated with non-native electromagnetic frequencies and blue-lit environments. After reading these essays, Andeea and I knew the full story had to be told. Peter joins us to explain, with the precision of an engineer and the clarity of someone whose connected dots the establishment prefers to stay scattered. The biophysical science that athletes, trainers, and fans desperately need to hear. Because the next injury is already being programmed at the cellular level, the only question is who's paying attention.
Welcome to the Quantum Healthy Podcast. I'm Andeea, a licensed addiction counselor, and along with my co-host, Laura Kissmann, a quantum nutritionist, we will be inviting expert scientists, clinicians, survivors, and thrivers to distill their pearls of wisdom attained from applying quantum biology to their fields of research and everyday lives. Our goal is to bring you easy to understand principles and practices about the study of light, water, and magnetism so you can take your health into your own hands. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Quantum Healthy Podcast. Today we have Peter Cowan is our guest, and he is a software engineer, a board-certified circadian biology health practitioner, and an EMF mitigating consultant and researcher. And he is acting as a citizen scientist. He took an unsolicited measurements and discovered biologically harmful magnetic fields near the San Francisco 49ers practice facility. And he has stopped everything to explain to the world how EMFs can contribute to soft tissue injuries and sparked a global conversation. Now, we've had R. Blank on the podcast twice as far as non-native EMFs as being a topic, and also Tristan Scott and Ole Johansson as well. So, Peter, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Can you explain a little bit how you became an EMF consultant, and then a little bit of your story? We'll start there.
How? Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it goes back. I've always kind of just been fascinated by electromagnetism. I'm a musician, and when I was maybe 19 or so, I got my hands on something called a theremin, which is this really otherworldly sounding instrument that's got these two antennas that so you don't touch it. You put your hands back and forth, one's volume and one's pitch. And it's basically using radio waves. So the guy that invented it, he was listening to the radio, and somewhere in between stations, he heard this, in between the static, just a very clear sine wave, kind of pure tone. And he figured out how to do that. And he turned it into this really cool musical instrument. So I think it was where I first learned what electromagnetism was. And so it's always just been fascinating to me. And then I actually worked at a company that built Wi-Fi hardware about 8 years ago. And that's when I started thinking about it critically, because when you go into the office of that kind of company, there's dozens, if not hundreds, of routers. And when you got a one Wi-Fi router at your house, you don't think about it too much, your cell phone, but when they're everywhere, it feels weird and you're like, maybe this stuff isn't good for us. And so, I asked that question and I got the sermon about non-ionizing radiation, ionizing, can't harm you. And it was just so like PR style, like CYA kind of talk that I just got a little bit suspicious. And then I got really sick and quit the job and got better when I wasn't in the environment. So that's kind of what really led me to the field.
Okay, couple questions. I just want to ask, how do you spell that instrument? I'm just curious.
Theremin, Theremin.
Okay, I'll look it up after. Very
Yeah,
cool.
look it up.
I heard Clariman, so okay.
Oh, Clarimin. Yeah.
Okay, and then okay, tell me about this job. Like, yeah, why you thought that made you sick, and how were you sick? What were the
Well,
symptoms?
I mean, why, just to be fair, I was already a little bit unwell. I have in my life had maybe 3 or 4 full-on complete health breakdowns.
Wow.
And that job I took about a year and a half after I went through a pretty just logistically nightmare of a divorce. And so
That'll do it.
yeah, it'll take its toll. And I moved and I like did 3 or 4 other things all at once and had to get it's just a lot of stress. And so I was a little bit under the weather already. And usually manifests like with gut issues and fatigue, brain fog, And then I wound up having surgery when I was there because I had some sinus issues and couldn't breathe out of my nose at night. So it was a lot of factors, but I got the surgery and I never, well, I shouldn't say never because I'm fine now, but at the time I didn't fully like wake up from the fog of the anesthesia for a couple months.
Oh,
And there was just this underlying, like, at that office, just high level of just stress is not the right word, but people were kind of just messed up in various different ways. And it was just, yes, the company had a bit of a toxic work, like structural setup, but also people were just not well. And you could tell. And I had one of those like desks that you have a desk on the side and in front was massive desk. I have at least 3 enterprise high-speed Wi-Fi routers on my desk, and then my coworkers would have some, here and there when they were working on their things, and we had dozens of these cameras, and that's not even to mention the access points and the switches, and interestingly, the really big, really high-powered stadium like level access points, which is what they use at stadiums so people can have their Wi-Fi, like in the office right behind me, next to the head of this guy who eventually wound up getting leukemia or some sort of disease like that. I haven't talked to him recently, but yeah, so people were not well, and I left. I told them if they were going to lay me off, they needed to do it in summer, and they complied. And June 27th, 2019, went to the beach, sat in the sand, and started feeling better, and
yeah, grounding.
yeah, and I didn't know too, like, it was kind of an instinctive thing at that time. It just felt good, go to the beach, there's birds and the waves, and it's cold out here, but it was warm enough to jump in the water a couple of times and feel good when you get out. All the basic things that we have like fancy explanations for in the quantum biology world that you just kind of do when you're like, well, I don't feel good, and this stuff sounds nice, And so I think that was really what clued me in. And this place I was working, it was like a cave on the inside during the day, except these really bright flickering lights because they're powered by Ethernet, and like it was terrible. And then massive monitors everywhere and just insane amounts of Wi-Fi. Like I kind of want to go back in there and pretend I'm visiting friends and bring my tools sometime.
Yeah, and just measure it all.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like a recipe for electrohypersensitivity.
Yeah, fortunately I don't have any such hypersensitivity, but
Oh,
I
bless.
did,
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
we all have our different weak points.
Yeah. I just on there, we didn't know before I learned, and my husband too, anything about the impact of non-native electromagnetic frequencies. Um, we got a Wi-Fi router, right? We brought it in the house, and we had it sitting at a desk, and we thought we were being really great parents. We weren't letting our kids have their computers in their rooms. So we made them come up into our office at night, and it was a scheduled amount of time, and and then but the router was at their feet. And
Mm,
as a parent, I feel guilty, to this day, what impact that might have had anyway. But I
you
can't
don't.
imagine having three routers, you know.
I mean, yeah, that was just three routers, dozens of access points. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So just for reference, I think I'm a bit like you. I am an EMF health consultant
Oh,
to
cool.
some degree. I probably haven't gone as far as you, but I have all the meters and
Hmm.
I test homes and basically test my clients' homes.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's been really enlightening to do that. And I think potentially because of what you've done in 2026, we may start to get a little busier as EMF consultants because this is waking people up to thinking, to asking, oh my gosh, is my home as safe as I think it is? Because all this stuff is
Yeah.
invisible.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I got so much feedback that people were just like, I always knew it wasn't good for you, but I didn't know. It was just this like intuitive thing. But I think a lot of them haven't really made the connection from that magnetic field from a substation, which is kind of a weird industrial machinery that we don't really relate to too much. You're like, well, most people don't even know what they are, honestly.
No.
And to the extent that they do, maybe because they heard about some like supposed like terrorist attacks on them and like in the last 5 years. But uh, so I think there's still more work to do to get people to make the connections to the cell phones and Wi-Fi and everything. And it's stuff that I'm going to be talking about in the journalism that I'm doing. So,
Well,
but
on that, your Substack, I just was able to read a few of your essays. I haven't got through them all. I think I counted 13 so far, but I've loved everything I've read so far.
thank
But
you.
I saw that you just did one on AirPods. So I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get that one. But I'm being honest and I'm going through one by one. I'm being very linear about it. But I can see that you're bringing out some other subjects. So I'm really, really thrilled about that. But let's go back because, obviously we've hinted at something with a substation and the San Francisco 49ers. What and Andeea, I don't know what Andeea. Andeea, are you a football fan?
I mean, I watch it once in a while.
You're
Not,
American, right? You're
yeah, yeah.
Basically, yeah.
my husband is, and he's also a San Francisco 49ers
Oh,
fan. So,
Oh,
cool.
okay.
but I don't, I kind of watch the halftime show at the Super Bowl, and I cook while he's or whatever while he's watching games. But so what we know, Andy and I were talking about this earlier. We know that you did a single post on X, Twitter, the old Twitter, connecting the San Francisco 49ers, this alarming injury rate to these electromagnetic fields primarily generated by a nearby electrical substation that you're just referring to, right? And that exploded to over 22 million views on that original tweet. And then the Washington Post wrote an article, and it was covered by mainstream media all over the world. And there's probably a lot more that's gone on since. But can you, I guess, fill in more of the holes on that story, and then tell us before you even get to your hypothesis, like, can you talk about the actual injuries as well? So maybe just fill us in on the story, and then, yeah, and we really want to hear about what specifically were the injuries that the San Francisco 49ers had, and why were they any different or unique? Yeah, just leave it with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really starts with I went to a game with my daughter 3 or 4 years ago, and when you go to that stadium, it's impossible not to see the substation, and you can kind of hear it buzzing too, and it's just it's weird because I went to Candlestick Park, which is it was kind of notorious because it was just on the edge of the San Francisco Bay in a very windy part of the city and just kind of austere, but in a nature environment with, ships in the background and stuff. And This one is more of like just nice and warm Santa Clara, California climate, but weird. There's actually a natural gas facility there too, and a receiving station for the data, the dark fiber that comes into Santa Clara. It's a weird environment. So I noticed it. And then a couple years later, I was watching the Super Bowl, and the player Dre Greenlaw was jumping up and down on the sidelines, getting ready to go in. And you could see the Achilles snap in his, I think, left foot. And he falls down before he even gets into the field, and it was just kind of alarming. And also, I'm squeamish, so I remember it viscerally. And so when I heard John Feliciano, who's an ex-49er, on a radio program last September, talking about their injuries, I'm not like a stat head or anything. Honestly, I like football because I think it's aesthetically just really pleasing, and like slow motion, just like the pictures of the balls, and like it's snowing, it's whatever, they play in any weather. I love it. I don't know the rules, don't know the player's name, positions, or anything. So, but I'm curious, and so he's talking, and they ask him about the injuries, and so it's apparently this thing that everybody knows is the 49ers are the most injured team, and he jokingly says, there's some players here that we joke about it being the electrical substations behind our practice facilities. Everybody laughs. And then he says, but there's some very high level players who take it very seriously. And then he tried to explain it. He's like, I think it does something to your thyroid or something. And anyway, this guy named Chase Sr. posted about that. And I saw it because one of my favorite X accounts, Helios Bra.
Yeah, I follow Helios Bra.
Helios is amazing. I love him. He posted about it, so I saw it, and I was like, "Oh, interesting. People are talking about this." And what they were saying is like, this guy is a conspiracy theorist kook. And so I, at that point, it had like 30,000 views. So I thought, you know what? I'm going down to the Bay for Thanksgiving, and I'm going to bring my tools, and I'm going to ask my dad, who was an electrical engineer, to come with me, and we're going to measure because I'm curious. And John Feliciano is right. It is contributing to the injuries. It is a problem. And I'm going to measure and make sure that the fields are elevated, and then I'm going to write about why. And so that's just kind of the whole thought process that I went through in doing it. I was really curious. And I was working on a lot of software in the fall, and I use Claude Code to write my code because writing code is boring, and it's much nicer to have the AI do it for you. So while it's coding, I'm writing on the side because you always have like 5-10 minutes of downtime in between. So that's why I do so much writing these days. Wow. And it just timing worked out that I managed to finish it right before the holidays, and then I decided to shelve it so I, deal with Christmas and stuff. And then after New Year's, I decided to do a final round of fact checking and posted it, and it just happened to coincide with some pretty high profile soft tissue non-contact injuries that flipped the narrative overnight from like 50% of the people being like, this is another just crazy conspiracy theorist kook, to, whoa, maybe there's something here.
You don't have a sleep problem, you have a lighting problem. Most modern LEDs flood your home with flickering blue-rich light that keeps your biology stuck in a daytime mode, delaying melatonin and spiking cortisol, and harming your sleep. It's time to get back in sync. Introducing the Better Sleep Bulb by InRhythm. It's the only flicker-free, infrared enriched, triple mode, dirty electricity-free bulb designed to mimic the natural shift from sunlight to firelight. Toggle between 3 modes to effortlessly support your body's need for repair and deep restorative sleep. Stop fighting your biology and start supporting it. Use our code QuantumHealthy for a discount. Click the link in the show notes to transform your home and your sleep tonight.
Yeah. And I even saw people like journalists, not mainstream journalists, like YouTube journalists. Grant Cohn is one of them, who flipped from being like, this is stupid. why are we focusing on this, to like immediate, like maybe there's, this is worth, why are the 49ers not even asking about this? Because it could be contributing, and what's the harm in asking?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hey, now we actually have this question about how different and unique other teams' injuries are, and you just said that these are non-contact injuries. Is that the major difference between like this team getting injured and then, I mean, lots of football teams have people that get injured. So can you
Yeah.
talk about the difference so people have an
Yeah.
understanding?
It's it is a really good question. Football's a violent sport, and there's lots of ways to get injured.
Mhm.
I do think that the non-contact part is important, but I think the most important point is soft tissue.
Okay.
Okay.
And unfortunately, the NFL doesn't break out the injury categories that in that granular of detail. So it's one of those things where you go to the stat sites, which are very popular these days because sports gambling and what's it called, fantasy football, are huge. So
Oh,
people make a lot of money on this stuff. And so I didn't do the direct research on that myself. I was using research from fantasy football sites, and it turns out that there's a couple like categories of injuries. There's, obviously like the um, Achilles ruptures, and then there's like a patella tear and high ankle syndesmosis or something, like, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's basically a high ankle strain right where the ankle attaches to the tibia, I think.
it's
And
the
for
shin.
the
Yeah.
shin, yeah,
Must be the tibialis anterior, I'm guessing. Okay.
you would know better than me.
Yeah.
And so those kind of injuries are just the Niners get them every year, and they get a lot
What
of
about
them.
hamstring? Is that another one? Hamstring tears
Well,
or
I
close?
think hamstring is a muscle, right?
Hmm.
So muscle is not soft tissue. So that's why it actually is so hard, because they do have something called MSK, it's in the musculoskeletal injuries, and you can kind of break it out by,
Mhm.
is it bone, is it muscle? But
Mhm.
I'm talking about collagen dense
Right.
tissue, and that's really the tendons and the connective tissue. And the Achilles happens to be one of the most collagen dense tissues in the body. So, and it's where so much of the force goes in these kind of, cut and turn and press moves.
Yeah, I heard you speak in another podcast that is it something like 2,000 pounds
20,
of
I had a 2,500 pounds of force.
force on
Yeah, yeah,
the Achilles takes.
yeah, yeah. And but again, that
Can
was,
take
yeah,
in a football game.
that was not my work. That was referencing somebody else's work.
Okay.
So I can't,
Still, it's
yeah,
incredible. Which would explain why it has so much collagen,
yeah, right.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and collagen is it's really strong. I mean, one of the reasons, uh, I might be getting the details slightly wrong, but there's this book, Life on the Edge, by Jamal Khalili and
Yep.
John Joe McFadden. The first thing they talk about is these enzymes that break down collagen rapidly, like a zipper effect. And I don't remember the exact quantum process that they use, but the example they use is fossils. And the reason that they don't degrade is because it's very hard to make collagen degrade. So
Mm.
just structurally, that's just kind of to give you a visual, like the millions of years or whatever.
Yeah.
And so we've created conditions where collagen is degrading, and so that's a problem.
Wow.
I think we both have that book. I have to confess I haven't read it yet.
Oh, really? It's a
Yeah.
hard
Is it?
read. It's hard. It's really good, and it's like written more like New York Times bestseller science kind of reading. So
Oh, okay.
it's compelling, like good storytelling and stuff. And
Okay.
you're talking about these like enzymes, and quantum phenomena are very hard to understand. I think my one of my favorite quotes about quantum is like Feynman is saying it, if you understand quantum
Mm.
physics, quantum mechanics, you don't understand quantum mechanics,
Hmm.
it's like,
Yeah. So
but yeah,
true.
fun book.
Good stuff. Oh gosh. Okay. Um, so my husband, the fan of the San Francisco 49ers, who's a test pilot, um, on our way back from a trip, we just arrived from France. We listened to a podcast you did, and he said, "You've got to find out, do other teams have, significant injuries, let's say, maybe not as significant as if the 49ers are the top, do any other teams have a substation near them or any other magnetic fields or
There's some that
anything?
have them within mile to 3 miles, and I think the closest one is
Okay.
like 500 meters. So that's not close enough for a magnetic field to
Okay.
still be of any note, though there could be high tension power lines feeding the stadium that could be near their training facilities. However, the other thing that you're going to get is dirty electricity.
Good.
And
I want to talk to you about
yeah,
that.
yeah. And so it's funny, I've actually been doing some investigation on this one. I can't remember the exact number, but around a substation, the dirty electricity, I'm going to use the technical term high frequency transients because that's what they use in the industry. I think it propagates for several miles, like up to 10 miles of a radius. So that is a question that I'm looking at. It's hard to get all the data. I have collected all the data of the locations of all the substations in the country. So now it's a matter of getting the locations of all the training facilities, which is harder
Ah,
than the actual athletic facilities where they perform in. So once I get that, then I'll be able to do a real and serious, like just rigorous analysis. And right now, I can tell you there's 3 or 4, maybe 5 other teams that train within the vicinity of a substation where you could expect the dirty electricity and perhaps even some ground current to be elevated, just depending on how their facilities are grounded, and how the plumbing is, all that stuff. It's You'd have to go in and, you can't know unless you go in and measure, but those are potential factors for those teams. But back to your question about the injuries, like it's a violent sport. Many factors cause injuries,
mm-hmm.
and EMF is only one.
Yeah,
There's other forms of EMF. The stadium's upgraded to 5G at different times.
that's a good point.
Yeah, and then you have, turf is not only harder on the joints, it's also toxic itself, and just the microplastic load. You just imagine like all that scuttling on the turf and just turning it into like airborne microplastic. That's not going to be good. And then you got things like ciprofloxacin and other fluoroquinine, I think is the term, antibiotics that are known to degrade collagen. So we could go on down the line. Then you have,
Yeah.
the lighting. The NFL lighting is designed so that it looks really good on a really high resolution, big television. It's not designed for the health of the players. They're going back and forth across time zones, playing late at night with these bright lights on them in late fall and winter. Like, so we can just go on down the line. There's a million things. And so
There's, yeah, I was gonna say just on that, like I hadn't thought about the 5G as well. Now, obviously, all the teams would have that, so it's not just, isolated to the San Francisco
you
49ers.
would think so, but the
Oh,
49ers just spent $200 million upgrading their antenna system for the Super Bowl. So there's been a
oh,
rollout since about 2020, and I think it's coming in phases.
okay.
And so it's, again, like it's more research. I only have so much time, but it's something I will
Yeah.
do at some point.
Well, you just spoke to like this bioaccumulation that not just those football players have, but a lot of people have. I mean, just different things all coming at you, and then there might be something like this that, and this substation being close to their training facility, that kind of, it puts a way too much of an overload on a system that's already taxed,
Yeah,
right?
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
The straw that broke the camel's back, basically.
Yeah. Um, yeah, just again back, I just want to point out the 5G, but also now everybody's got a cell phone.
Mhm.
So when they actually play in the stadiums, that's a lot of RF that,
It is.
in addition to the magnetic field of the substation, the dirty electricity that's probably coming out of that. Now, when you tested, okay, so let's go there. When you tested, what kind of readings did you get? And did you have any way to bring a dirty electricity microsurge meter
Uh,
and test
I
any?
didn't bring my dirty electricity meter. No,
Oh, okay.
unfortunately. Yeah.
That would have been nice.
Yeah. Maybe I'll go
Next
again.
time.
Yeah.
And
If they let me in, we'll see.
yeah, well, here's okay. Has anybody not contacted you to say, hey, bring your meters, come
No,
in and
oh no, here's the thing.
I don't get that.
The day before I went, or a couple days before I went, I was having my annual Friendsgiving down in my hometown in Santa Cruz.
Mhm.
My buddy, we were both drinking a little bit, just a little bit. And I was telling him about my plan, and because he goes to a bunch of 49ers games because his wife is best friends with the owner's wife. And I was thinking maybe, I'll measure it because the players are concerned, and the team ownership probably doesn't really think it's a problem, because if they went and asked any official person, they would get the answer, no, it's under the safety limits. And then they would probably just stop looking into it. And so I thought maybe I'll just get just enough attention on my Twitter account, which is pretty small, honestly. But that post at Chase Senior, I had seen it had like 30,000 when I saw it. So I thought just enough attention, and he knows them, and then maybe I'll get a meeting and I can help them. Obviously history had a different turn, but no, nobody has gotten in touch with me. And John Lynch, the general manager, has definitely referred to me several times, but they're not going to call me, and they're not going to call any building biologist.
Yeah,
And
that confounds me. That would be the next go-to, I would think, because at least they have, the top equipment,
no, that's not how things work.
No.
No, you got to look back at the concussion issue. That was first unearthed in, I think, 1997 or something like that. Maybe a little bit later, actually, but it wasn't until I think 2014 or something that they finally actually addressed it. And this is something that a doctor working for the NFL, I can't say his name right, so I don't want to mispronounce it. Bennett Omalu or something like that. And he had evidence, he was doing a forensic analysis of one of the players who had died. And so that was like hard evidence within the NFL system. That took 14 or 16 years for them to actually address. So these things, when corporations are concerned that they might be liable for something, their go-to move is to bury it under the rug and make it look like not a problem. So they're not going to call anybody who's going to say this is a problem.
Right. You do have a really good essay on this. If anybody hasn't gone to your Substack and read that, so I'll leave that more as a surprise for people to learn. But you talked about your potential. Well, okay, so someone did test, right? And they have not provided the name. And there was other details they didn't provide. I forget.
They didn't provide any details. What they did is they had a very small press conference.
Right.
They only invited Bay Area reporters, so the friendly, the ones that they know, very friendly ones. And they took a handful of questions. It was at the owners meeting or something in Arizona. And somebody asked about the substation. And when you listen to these press conferences, whenever it's asked, like the reporter is almost like apologizing for asking the question because, oh, we shouldn't take this seriously. Everybody laughs. And then they answer it. And in this case, John Lynch said, yeah, we got the report done. And, I was really relieved that it said, we're safe. We're a safe facility. It's no different than your average workplace, your average gym. And I believe the number that we got was 400 times less than what is unsafe. And we hired an independent scientist, and he's got over 45 years.
That's right.
Experience. And then if you want more information, talk to Corey Rush, who's like the media guy. And so they didn't cover that in the press conference, but one of the reports, the New York Times, The Athletic, I believe, did ask him for more information. And that's where we got the quotes from the scientists saying it's no different. It's much lower than if you used a vacuum cleaner or a hairdryer.
Right.
So I used all those clues, and you gotta have to understand the EMF world, it's a very small world. There's not they did such a good job of shutting down research that almost no legal challenges exist whatsoever. And certainly, like even in the cell, like in the cell antenna, like there's almost no legal challenge you can make with electric power infrastructure. There's more leeway, and you're still not going to necessarily sue the company, but you maybe could get a project moved, or maybe the judge can decide it's actually not necessary. And so to the extent that these people do exist, that's why they exist, and there's only a handful of them. So I just dug through testimony and I found the guy. Well, I'm 99% sure I found the guy, I should say. His name is Dr. William Bailey, and he's the head of the EMF department at a company called Exponent Incorporated, which is a product defense company. And just to be fair, they're a scientific consulting company, and so they do science for hire. A lot of their business comes from large companies that are facing liability issues and want to defend themselves. So there's whole books written on this kind of economics. I think it's called Doubt is Their Product. Yeah, David Michaels, I think his name is.
David Michaels.
Yeah, and Deborah Davis wrote a book called The Truth About the War on Cancer that covers the same topic. And so, yeah.
I have Disconnect.
And that's another great book by her.
Oh, it's such a great book. Yeah.
It's a good book. So, yeah, I mean, that's the kind of person that does this kind of consultation, and they'll do work for like a company that is involved in an oil spill or asbestos, or my favorite connection is they've done work for workers exposed to hexavalent chromium, which you might recognize that name from Aaron Brockovich, who sued PG&E over their use of. So there's a lot of interesting connections. And this company also previously did work for Silicon Valley Power, which is the company that owns the Northern Receiving Station, which is a substation right behind the facility. So I made a pretty airtight case. I can't prove it's him. I emailed him. He got back to me and said, sorry, I can't speculate on the reports that have been speculated in the media. Something super vague and not even acknowledging the question, which to me was I almost think he was in a way telling me that it was him, and he can't say it was him because he didn't deny it, and he didn't do the no response thing. And when I did, I responded directly. I said, just to be clear, did you read the report or did you not? He didn't respond again. Someone like that, like he's doing his job, he's has no shame, like he wouldn't want to hide. He's very talented at what he does. Like it's nothing personal. It's just that's the economics of this kind of stuff. And
it's the way it goes with
the way it goes. Yeah. And
smoking.
Yeah,
asbestos.
Exactly. All of it,
You're even saying, I think in your article you talked about PFAS.
Yeah, those forever chemicals.
Chemicals as well. And we just, until something is really proven unsafe, there's just so much money involved in all of this, right?
Yeah.
Oh boy. You're kind of reminding me. I did a podcast interview with the Quantum Health Connection. I don't know if you know Heather. She has a different last name now. Used to be Crimson, and Vanessa Baldwin. But it's their only podcast that was canceled, and it was on non-native electromagnetic frequencies. And I mean, I didn't swear. I didn't blame anybody, nothing, but I did say that I took my meter and drove along, and it would spike. I talked about how it would spike when I would see 5G poles, and I happened to mention that it was high near a university, and I didn't name. I don't think I even named the university, but I think that was enough. I don't. Some powers that be went, we don't want that out there.
Wow.
So,
are they sponsored by people? Was it a money thing, or was it like a platform?
No, it was just YouTube.
Oh, YouTube. Oh, yeah. YouTube. Yeah. If you're mentioning I've had people wanting to do podcasts, and they're very specific about not mentioning 5G. You got to be careful.
Still to this day, like it used to be that way.
That's what they said. Like I don't have a YouTube channel, but they were basically said, yeah, let's just not talk about it that way. We can talk about it ish. Microwaves, millimeter waves, but stay away from 5G.
That word, yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote a whole long blog article years ago, and it was 6H. I called it. It was the code word because it was so bad back then that I kind of thought we were past that now because it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere, right? Yeah. Oh my goodness. I think it's just great to see this conversation, right?
Hmm.
It's important to let people talk about this subject because people, a lot of people are asking, and I think you've alluded to that, like that the players themselves are wondering,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
And
for
that's been your
sure.
motivation, right? It's not to harm anybody, it's to help the players
I
themselves.
mean, I hate to see, like I said, I'm squeamish. I hate to see the injuries, and
Mm.
these kind of collagen and soft tissue injuries are up just across the board everywhere
Mhm.
because the circadian factor, I think, is the primary thing. But yeah, I was hoping that I'd maybe get a consulting gig, like helping them avoid the injuries. So, you
I
know,
thought of that too.
yeah,
I said that to
yeah.
my husband when I heard all this. I said, wouldn't it be great if they would hire him and he could go in and say, okay, this is how we can prevent this.
Yeah,
Because you healed yourself, right?
yeah,
From
yeah, for sure. And
because didn't you have a tendon? You
I
had a
did.
tendon issue,
I
right?
did. I
In your
had really
hands?
bad, really, really bad tendon issues for years. Yeah, I mean, I'll show you. So if people are watching, I couldn't hold a glass of water. I had to drink like this. And see, like, so I'd rest my palms against the sides of the
Wow.
glass because the fingers, it had to do with inflammation in, this area and like nerves and stuff.
Carpal tunnel?
No, it was not carpal
No.
tunnel. It was
Yeah.
just a repetitive stress, But
Right.
really, what it came down to was just weakness. And anyway, yeah, I did heal myself, and it like Andeea said, like just accumulation of toxic exposures. Yeah, and like, you can also accumulate more healthy habits, and I think you can really counteract it pretty well. So that would have been nice. It would have been better for me economically too. But uh,
Yeah.
I'm happy with how things are turning out though. Like it's been a really good conversation.
So before we go away from this, what would you say to the if you could talk to the players? Maybe some of them will listen to this and hear your message.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's funny. It's funny almost to me that the substation thing caught on. Of course it did because it's just such a good little meme thing. But I think the number one thing is the circadian disruption. I really do. Just from a point of,
Over the magnetic fields? Like,
well, yes, I do because um, I think the circadian thing, it gets to the oxidative stress and it gets to the timing. And so it's two factors. Whereas the EM and it's pretty much ever present. Like I know some of the athletes do have started using blue blockers and stuff, but your average NFL athlete is not. And they're often like staying up late playing video games, partying. They're young, they want to have fun. And then they're traveling on planes and it's time change differences. And so the timing part is really important. So, we talk about the mitochondrial dysfunction and leading to cellular dehydration, which is really important structural element of collagen. That is super important. And mitochondrial distress can come from many different sources, right? But the circadian timing stuff only comes from one source, and that's light. And it turns out that collagen synthesis is a circadian timed process. Of course it is. Everything is. Why would collagen not be? If you look at the literature, it's it's not controversial at all. So like I put that in my third essay as also this mechanism is very important. And I happen to be writing about the substation, so it's not directly related to substation, but I actually think it's the most important one because of the timing mechanism.
right.
And it's also the least controversial one. I don't think people might push back against it if they didn't know, but you can point to, so with the EMF one, I had to point to studies that show oxidative stress from EMF, and then other studies that show collagen degradation from oxidative stress, and then just a handful of studies that kind of make the connection um, in ways that aren't exactly one-to-one mapping with the substation itself and what it's producing. So there's still a bit of a hypothetical leap, at least as far as the mainstream scientific literature goes. I think the mechanistic explanation is pretty much airtight. With the circadian disruption, you can just go to the mainstream literature and it's not all the steps are directly laid out. They have clinical studies, they have in vitro, mechanistic. It's a really rich area of research. They would not have called me a conspiracy theorist about it. They might have pushed back. I might have made them uncomfortable to talk about. It wouldn't have been specific to the 49ers or the NFL. And right, it's just everything. So to the extent that if you start talking about LEDs and our screens and stuff being bad for us, of course there's people that don't like us talking about that. And then you start talking about, well, why are they making us use LEDs? Because of climate change, and there's bigger political, they don't like that, but it's still not in the conspiracy range. So I think that would have unfortunately been a better conversation to really open up this question of what's causing the injuries. But that's, so if I'm going to talk to a player, that's the one thing I'm going to do. So let's lock in,
start there,
the circadian rhythm, just lock it in. And of course, go live your life and have fun here and there. But like when you're training and when you're, in the season and you're flying back and forth once a week, and now like the Niners are going to Australia and maybe England or Mexico or something. They're playing, like, the Australia trip is ridiculous. It's so much traveling in such a short period of time. You're going to need, beyond just the circadian stuff, you're going to need some like advanced antioxidant, for lack of a better word. Like I would even suggest, beyond doing your red light therapy and maybe some cold and some sauna, I would invest in like I would go to the Axiom Hydrogen Company and buy their most expensive molecular hydrogen machine, and you can breathe it in, you can put it in your ears, and the most powerful one, I think it's between 10 and 20,000, but you can, in 15 minutes you can get a really good dose, and that's going to help with the oxidative stress. And they're professional athletes, like they could afford that easily.
This episode is sponsored by VIVARAYS, the only eyewear company that truly understands your biology. VIVARAYS are advanced blue light glasses designed with circadian biology in mind. Unlike typical blue blockers, they filter light in harmony with your body's natural rhythms, helping you sleep deeper, feel more energized, and protect your long-term health. We love companies that support biology-backed wellness, and VIVARAYS is leading the way. Use code QuantumHealthy at VIVARAYS.com to save 15% and support your sleep, focus, and natural energy the way nature intended. Enjoy this episode.
Yep. And I think about just like simple blocking of blue light so their melatonin kicks on at night.
Exactly.
That's not repairing things at night. Like that's huge.
Huge. Yeah, that's the number one. It's number one.
But I can, having just done some jet lag, like there's so many things, obviously the training in jet lag helps, and knowing when to sleep and all of that. But yeah, just like making sure they always see sunrise. You get some UVA light, but what was I gonna say? Oh, blue blockers. Just like I have, when I'm on the plane, and knowing that I want to get some sleep on the plane, like I got the red, geek out ones that, and then obviously then I'll put a mask on when I'm serious about the sleep. But yeah, just to wind, and then I really work the blue blocker thing on planes. But I don't have very much EMF clothing, but that might be something they could look at too, on, because a lot of non-native EMF on planes as well. But
I question that stuff, not because I don't think it works, but it risks attracting electrical fields. So you might wind up shielding the RF and increasing electrical. So it's one of those things I wouldn't recommend to anybody unless they know how to test, basically.
Sorry, I actually don't understand that. Why would it? Can you explain why it would risk electrical field?
Yeah, because shielding clothing generally contains silver or copper mesh in there, and that's going to attract the electrical field, and it's a conductor. So
and then trap it.
The same thing that allows it to block RF is what allows it is the conductance. So it's highly conductive. Right. So if you're in line of a stray electrical field, which is very likely on your day-to-day living. And I can't say whether or not in an airplane, but I definitely can't say not. So it's just, especially if you're going to put on your head or something, you better be, you want to be sure that you're not just attracting an electric field. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a professional athlete, you can afford, you can afford that. You could pay someone to fly with you and test everything if you wanted to, and you're flying on a corporate jet, so you have control of the environment to a certain extent. You don't actually need electric inputs right at your feet. Like in your airplane, you got all the electrical infrastructure behind your seat because the person behind you wants to watch their movie, right?
And all the time, and then their phone's plugged into your head, basically.
Yeah, I know. And so like that's why you would want to wear the clothing, but unfortunately you can't do anything about that person behind you. And so, but if you're a professional athlete, the plane needs electricity to run. You need some light maybe to see. Otherwise, what do you really need? So you could set up a detox area. The best as you can do on a plane. Obviously, it's not going to be great, but it's going to be better than having somebody's Wi-Fi right behind your head.
Yep. I will say that I got a chance today to test in first class with my meter, and it's lower than it is in the cattle class in the back where I normally fly. So just because people have cell phones beside you at such close range and Bluetooth, you're just so close to people. That's one thing I did notice was it was generally lower. Hopefully they can afford to be in first class.
Certain airlines too not all of them have the TVs in the headrest. Like I fly Alaska quite a bit and I love it because there's no TV.
Yeah.
More and more they're actually going away from it.
They all have the TVs. I mean, I'm sure it depends on the plane, but I don't know. The plane I end up on, those all have TVs. The Alaska doesn't. So
one thing we really want to talk about is something that you've written about. Is you've actually, I think, educated a lot of us with a little more detail on collagen and how it breaks down, and what the perfect storm is to destroy collagen. Could you kind of nerd out on collagen repair for us?
I can try. Yeah. You want to give me a specific question, or I can just.
Well, so if you've got EMF, let's say you've got, so the substation. Let's go back, right? Yeah. Obviously. It's a high electrical field, I'm sure, but a really high magnetic field.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think you actually wrote it. Well, you wrote about it, how it's very, very possible that there's high dirty electricity as well. But let's just talk about non-native EMFs, could be RF as well. But how, with an overload of that, how does it affect the mitochondria? If you just go to there.
Yeah. I think of it in a couple ways. I think the most important one is just I like this one because it really gets down to just like basic axiomatic laws of physics. Is that so? Your mitochondria produces its own electromagnetic field, and it's a weaker field and it's higher frequency compared to a magnetic field, and the Maxwell's laws. James Clerk Maxwell, I think is his name, was a physicist. Yep. And maybe I got the order of those names wrong. I don't know. He had the four laws of electromagnetism. I don't know all of them, but one of them is superposition, and that is that if you put one electromagnetic field over another, it will alter it. So you've got your little your weak electromagnetic field on your in the intermitochondrial membrane, and then you got this bigger one coming through that alters it. And I like to visualize it like you drop a pebble in a pond, and then a boat comes by from far away, and you got these big waves. You got the little waves and the big waves, and the big wave, you can tell like at the bottom of the wave, the little ones are compressed. At the top, they're spread out. So think about you've got this the EM field in your mitochondria, and you got the electrons going through the respiratory proteins. If those are getting stretched out, you're going to lose more electrons. And when you lose electrons, that's when you get oxidative stress, radical oxidation, I can't even say that word right now.
ROS. ROS,
Yeah.
reactive oxygen species.
Yeah, reactive oxygen species.
Yeah.
I always say it wrong. I'm not a word person in that way for some reason. Anyway, so that's where the oxidative stress comes from. And so you're getting more ROS, but you're also getting less water. And
ROS for all, you actually said it right. You said free radicals. That's what most people will understand.
yeah, okay.
They don't, I think it's more of a newer term and more accurate term, but
Yeah.
it's more, so you're getting more of these free radicals. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's, it's that balance between free radicals and water. So you're not only you're getting more free radicals, which are creating oxidative stress, which is damaging your cells, DNA, lipids, the mitochondria itself, making it so that the mitochondria is going to produce less energy in general, just because it's damaged. And then you're creating less water, and water is a key component of collagen, and which is, I think, I always forget the exact number, it's like 99.7, 99.8% water by molecular count.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a structural component of that collagen. So then on top of that, this is something that's not controversial at all in the literature, is oxidative stress upregulates something called MMP, matrix metalloproteinase, I think. Don't quote
I
me
know
on
there's
that.
metal in that word. Yeah,
There is metal. Yeah.
And
And when that gets upregulated, that affects collagen synthesis. So you're specifically degrading collagen with that mechanism. So it's kind of three things happening just from that one oxidative stress. And that's only one of the pathways. Because then you have the voltage-gated calcium mechanism, which is basically, there's a scientist, Dimitri Panagopoulos, and he does the physics of this, and it's really deep, and I write about it, but I can't remember all the explanations. But what it does is it puts pressure on these, basically it makes these gates oscillate and open up, and usually they open up more in a cyclical nature as needed, to let calcium, and it's not just calcium. I think there's potassium and other channels as well, but most of the research is on the calcium channels. So basically the RF or whatever wavelength is causing these channels to open up and stay open, and that's flooding the cell with calcium, and that creates some really ugly ROS and RN, reactive nitrogen species as well. I think peroxynitrate is a really nasty one. And so that's feeding the oxidative stress in another way. And then the third one that I outlined is actually has to do with the mast cells. And the mast cells, part of your immune system.
I'm so glad you're mentioning that.
It's been a while since I dug into that. That's actually the one that led me down this line of research in the first place, because I was seeing clients got really interested in MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome. And so I was seeing clients who had the syndrome and kind of trying to attack it from an environmental health perspective. And
bless you. They need you.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it's a really, really hard condition to fully address. And
we've had someone on the podcast.
Is that right?
Yeah. Colleague of mine who's, suffering.
Suffering.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, I thought you
meant I should connect you two. We'll talk after.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And you mentioned Ola Johansson earlier. He's done research on the mast cells and how RF radiation actually causes them to activate and open up. And usually, so they will open up and release histamines and other what I call growth factors. I don't remember the names of the exact chemicals, but it's meant to be a temporary thing to fight off an invader. But these EMFs keep them open, and they keep pumping those things out. And some of these growth factors, while they're protective in the short term, in the long term, they're weakening collagen. And so you have your blood cells will get weaker, and then you'll get in POTS, which is
blood vessels, you mean?
Yeah, blood vessels, like the endothelial cells. Postural orthopedic tachycardia syndrome is when people stand up and then they get low blood pressure and their heart speeds up really fast and get palpitations, and that's connected to MCAS. And then there's something called EDS which is connected to these two, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a hypermobility condition, which is believed to be hereditary and is hereditary, don't get me wrong. And it's really increased in the past 20 years. And so I made the connection from from MCAS and the mast cells to the EDS. And so what's actually happening is one of many factors, but the RF, primarily RF, is causing these mast cells to activate and stay open and release the growth factors, which degrade the collagen. And it's just this kind of feedback loop. And then your nervous system gets activated and you're at this high level of stress. And anyway, it's very hard to break that loop. And so I had done all that research, and that's why when I heard John Feliciano talking, I was like, yeah, I know what's going on
there. That's when you went, I know what's going on?
That's why, yeah, when I heard him talking about the tendon, the injury rates, and I was like, yeah, it's just obvious because I'd been dealing with clients who, have this, and these professional athletes are generally very healthy people, and they're high, just in the, as far as your average person goes, they're on the upper tier of, performance and all these things that are good indicators of robust health. So they're not necessarily going to present with full-blown MCAS and POTS and EDS, but their tendons also aren't immune. And also everybody has their own weak point. So not everybody's going to have a tendon issue. It's just, kind of where are your mitochondria the weakest, what's getting infected the most. But it's the same phenomenon. So when I saw that they had a lot of collagen-based injuries and there's EMF factors, like, oh yeah, the same thing is happening. It's just manifesting in a different way.
I think about like a rubber, when you have an old rubber band and parts of it are actually still stretchy, and then there's parts of it that will stretch out and then they stay stretched out.
Yeah.
Like because collagen is, it's a triple helix. It's got the water tubule in the middle. That's how light travels through our body. And so if you have all these, these breaks where it's dehydrated and or damaged or what have you, when it's stretched out and it's not stretchy anymore, of course, the next thing that happens to it, it's going to break.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I'm glad you said that because that's an important factor that I haven't really touched on at all. Like, there's a certain amount of people will accept only so much. So if you start talking about like quantum effects of collagen and piezoelectricity, you're going to lose a lot, and you're trying to reach like a mainstream audience. You're going to lose a lot more people. But then you come in and talk about like to quantum people, and you're like, yeah, that's a huge factor. And we haven't even touched on that factor. And of course, it's equally as important.
Yeah. The company we keep.
Yeah.
I'm just blown away that you made that connection, like from MCAS. So just to clarify, so MCAS is not like you're not thinking of it on a spectrum. It's more that it's just certain areas of the body. It's showing up in different people and in different, like, or do you see it on a spectrum? Like it's like there's full-blown autism over here, and then the other, or like or celiac, for example. That might be a better one, where people say like at some point you can be gluten sensitive, and then there's like at some point you hit this oral tolerance where suddenly you become celiac, but you've always had that potential to go that far. But it depends on, like, if you just kept eating gluten and then you had you layer on all the other insults, right? Stress and circadian rhythm disruption. And
I think you're right. No, I mean, I do see it as a spectrum, and most of the people that I was treating with MCAS had also a vaccine injury. So
yes.
Yeah, so it is that layering. And a lot of MCAS is very underdiagnosed. I think it only became formally introduced as a diagnosable term in like 2010 or 11. And because the symptoms are so similar to just normal allergies for a lot of people, like you could even just like have hives or rash or something, most people are not going to get diagnosed. And so I think that's honestly why people haven't made the connection that with the MCAS, POTS, and EDS, which is a well-known like triad of conditions, with sometimes people will add on like just general autonomic dysfunction, dysautonomia, and then it kind of branches into long COVID too. It's like becomes this kind of big umbrella for this, almost just like your body's not just producing enough energy for everything, so things are just kind of, you know,
like
like
broken mitochondria.
yeah, kind of like when there's too much power consumption in a city and they have to like turn off parts of the grid at a different time. Like it's, I think of it that way. So but I think people aren't making that connection, mostly because MCAS is so underdiagnosed. But I found a study looking at the underdiagnosed and estimating what the prevalence is within the population to be 17%. And so when I used that estimated percentage and then I looked at the graphs with EDS and POTS, it lined up exactly. So you just have to dig a little bit deeper.
Wow.
And you know, it's not, I can't prove it, but I think it's a pretty compelling case. And like, why else would EDS be going up if it's strictly a hereditary disease? Why is it going up so much?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody,
We are seeing,
yeah, you have to answer that question. If you disagree with me, my contention that it's MCAS, find another answer. I might be wrong, but I don't know what the other explanation is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. It could be back to the Cipro, right? Like taking these drugs that weaken the collagen. Is it something that like our mothers taking something or something in our environment? Is it the plastic? I mean, we don't know really, right? But what we do know is that like how you've explained, RF does play a role in weakening collagen.
For sure.
What have we done since 2010, right? Like 2010 is when cell phones.
That's really when they really started proliferating. 2008.
Proliferating,
Yeah, when the iPhone really got popular, I think it was 2008, 2009. Yeah, and then, you know, you also have the rollout of Obama's like changes into the lighting standards that went into effect like 2013. And LEDs became cheap enough that people could justify buying them based on their longer term of life. But yeah, there's a lot of things have been happening since then.
Just on the lighting, I don't know, maybe we already talked about it, but I keep thinking about, you know, you keep saying that the circadian rhythm disruption is such a big player in this issue, the 49ers, but and it's not just them, but the lights that they have in football stadiums, right? So can you explain the messaging of what the lighting at, I don't know, 8 o'clock at night at a football game, what that would be doing to the body? Can you just
I mean, so I found the AMSI standard that they use, and I think it's 6,500 K, which is very bright. Like that's most light bulbs, even if they're like bright white, are 5,000 K. And these are those massive, you know, arrays of lights, right?
Arrays,
yeah. And so what is that doing? I mean, that's just directly like I don't know if you've seen those videos of what happens to the respiratory proteins when you shine isolated blue light on it versus
I've never
blue light with red. They actually shrink. It's crazy. Martin Picard, it's on his website. You can look at the videos.
Man, that would make the swelling even worse if they're shrinking at the same time they're getting apart from each other.
So I think it's possible that you're actually getting dehydrated in real time. Like just thinking about so, you know, we have melanopsin receptors not only in our eyes, but it's in our skin and stuff. And that Achilles tendon is pretty close to the surface of the skin. You know, and so you're getting the systemic effects from the blue light in the eyes from, you know, the IPRGCC or whatever. And then you're getting potentially a surface effect, which again, you know, you got the Achilles tendon right there, the knee too. I think if you're wearing lighter clothing, it's possible that it's going through the clothing, but you know, again, it's hypothetical. But just, you know, your hours of exposure, intense bright light, while the exercise that you're doing and the training that you do every day is putting your tendons in a place where they're already as a process, when you're training, you're creating oxidative stress, right? It's part of the growth and repair cycle. So
you got to stress it to,
yeah, exactly.
like
You're
muscles,
stressing
right?
it intentionally to make it stronger. And but you're not the training people aren't factoring in all these other things. So it's not directly comparable to like, the comment I got a million times, well, I work at, I'm an electrician, I work at the substation and my tendons are fine. It's like, okay, but you sit on the couch after work for 3 hours drinking a beer. You're not like training every day and creating other sources of oxidative stress. So, but back to that, the playtime is you're already prone to, your tissues are already stressed, and in real time you are probably dehydrating yourself and thus making the collagen weaker in the moment. So,
Yeah.
and then just to go on top of that, you've got these distributed antenna systems that are designed so that 70,000 fans can stream their video back to, post to Instagram or whatever they're doing. And because the NFL likes that's why they put the antenna systems. It's not so you can have a good self signal to text your mom. It's so you can take videos, post, and they want more and more media.
Right.
They also use those systems for the coaches to communicate with the players in the fields. They've got the headsets, and so those antennas are pointed so that they're going straight to the field, so that there's really no place where you're going to get a dead zone. And as we know, you have the oxidative stress from that angle, but you also get something called the rouleau effect, which is when you get stacking of the red blood cells, clumping basically. It's a particular type of clumping. And that's going to mean that you are delivering less oxygen to the tissue, probably. And can we prove that the fields are strong enough to do that in real time? I don't know, but it's something that they're also not really studying that carefully. And we do have like human in lab tests of a cell phone on a woman's leg for 5 minutes and a rouleau before and after. And the thing is with those ultrasounds that they use to test is that there's a threshold about, they can't see under a certain point. So they couldn't see stacking that doesn't add up to 70 red blood cells. So there could be additional stacking that they're not even seeing. So maybe, okay, so you don't have the cell phone directly on your body, but you do have these really strong millimeter wave and microwave emitting fields coming from many different angles. Maybe you're getting a lot more of the smaller clumping. Who knows? But the evidence is there that it's a concern. So you put all those things together, it's just a recipe for injuries.
Wow. Yeah, whatever. Okay, let's go back to magnetic fields, because that's the biggest, underlying stressor that these players have, because they're so close to this big, huge, substation, which isn't nobody would live by it. Like realistically, nobody would choose to live by that, right?
Well, yeah, unfortunately people do, but yeah.
Yeah. I know one of my boys just moved by power lines.
Yeah.
Now he's not right beside it, but he's pretty darn close. And and had a spontaneous lung collapse.
Yikes.
Yeah, have you heard of anything like that with magnetic fields? No, just makes me kind of wonder, because that's a lot of collagen, right? The lung is
that's outside of my specialty. I haven't even thought about the lungs. That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, I was there with my meter, so I still got to go back and learn. But
well, you mentioned that you're asking about the substation, and so
yeah. So back to the substation. Did you what were the readings? Like I'm used to nanotesla here in Canada, but
yeah, we should convert. So the closest I got to the facilities was at the edge of the practice field, and right there I got up to 8.93 milligauss, which I think is maybe it's 0.089, 0.09. It's either 0.9 or 0.0. It's
okay.
Something
I'll have
like
to
that.
do the conversion after. Okay,
yeah,
so 8 milligauss. Okay.
Yeah, so just in general terms, it's over twice, about 3 times above the limit of when they start noticing leukemia in populations.
Okay, I was
particularly children. Yeah, so as far as chronic exposure
which
goes,
is like 3 Gauss. I think I heard you wrote
3 to 4 milligauss.
3 to 4, right? 3 to 4
Yeah,
mil.
and so that's what I saw there. But there's high tension power lines all over the place, and there's feeder lines under the ground. I was walking over a feeder line, and like at foot level, it's like 50 milligauss. At waist level, it's like 19, 20.
So
And then
you can't see these. You're just seeing it with your meter,
yeah,
right?
it's
Yeah.
invisible. And
Okay.
then I think something that was really interesting going back to that independent study is that he said it's 400 times less than unsafe. And then he said it's a typical workplace. And so the workplace standards for milligauss for magnetic field exposure is 10,000 milligauss. So 400 times less than that is 20 milligauss, which is pretty much what I estimated in my first article. I said it's 13, just being conservative on a low day, like not on the day when a game is happening and air conditioning all across Silicon Valley. I said 13 to 21 milligauss. So unless they were going on the residential standard, which is lower, it's probably about 20 milligauss in the training facilities. And if they were going by the residential standard, it would be 5 milligauss, which is still higher than I would want to be, and still high enough to be associated with chronic exposure issues. I don't know why they would use the non-workplace standard for a workplace, though. So my best guess is that it's right around 20 milligauss.
Okay. And a gentleman called, or a scientist, Rutger Weaver, he's influenced your understanding of magnetic fields. Can you explain?
Yeah, he did some studies, I think it was the 70s, looking at people's sleep, basically the circadian rhythm, but he wanted to first put them in. So he had 2 studies. It's been a while since I read them, but one was in a Faraday cage that shielded the electric fields, and then the other was one that actually shielded magnetic fields as well. And I believe what happened was in the one with the electric field shielding only, that their sleep cycle remained pretty close to 24 hours and extended maybe a little bit. But then the magnetic one, it just was all over the place, like even like 30 plus hours, until he introduced a 10 hertz signal, which was meant to replicate the Schumann resonance. Yeah, and then it went back. And so this is in absence of light, though. So I've always found that interesting because, we focus so much on light as being the circadian cue, and yet there's all these other fields that we're subject to that are native to the Earth that we don't put much thought into and haven't really been studied that rigorously, that we seem to be adapted to. And
so they were in the dark.
Yeah.
All the participants in the study got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so interesting. So it shows you that without, it's like you need a magnetic, you need some
Right.
magnetic field, right? And that's a concern now. I know Dr. Jack Cruz is coming out with, that's kind of shocking everybody, is that we've known that our magnetic field on the planet is going down. Are you following in that at all?
The polar flip stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, polar flip and just
I gotta say, not too much. Like, I do think it's interesting, and I know that there's a handful of theories out there about what's going to happen with, there's the anomaly and
the South Atlantic anomaly. Yeah.
Yeah, and then just the pole is shifting rapidly, right? Like you look at the map and it's just increasing.
It left Canada apparently.
Yeah, I saw that.
I know, it's really depressing.
I don't know. I there's a thing that happens in this quantum biology field where we get so far outside of the mainstream, and you look at the mainstream and you're like, it's BS, and people are claiming certainty about things that we aren't certain about, and we have these other explanations, and then a certain type of person gets so wedded to their counter explanations that they kind of attach that same certainty to it. And I'm more like, there's a lot of uncertainty here. Like we don't actually know. And I think that doesn't mean, I think it's really interesting. And it's something that I was digging into a lot about a year and a half ago because I find it so interesting. Just the connection between like geophysics and heliophysics and like space weather and the solar winds and the earth. Like it's really beautiful science. And then you get into like Arthur Firstenberg. Like we talked about him earlier, actually before that.
He wrote The Invisible Rainbow.
Right. Yeah. And like
recently passed away. Very
right.
electro-hypersensitive.
Yeah. But he did amazing work. And one of the things he talked about was something that called the Heilemann effect. I'm pronouncing it wrong, but Andrew Marino actually went in front of Congress and testified the high voltage power lines they're putting in were affecting the ionosphere. And so that's just one aspect of our non-native electromagnetic fields. What about everything we're doing now? How is it affecting not only our health, how is it affecting the health of the planet and the solar system? And it's just a big open question, and I find it just really fascinating and beautiful. And I'm not into the fear mongering, honestly. I'm not. And like,
oh, see, I need to get to where you are, because I get scared by hearing all this.
I don't have any fear whatsoever. Like,
no,
whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and it's not something we can control. And like, there's so much struggling and resisting and fighting these things that are just like.
I'm so happy you're saying this.
I just feel it so deeply, and like I'm at such peace myself, and I see people distressing and like, we have to do all these things. Like, what are you really going to do? Like, other than twist yourself up in knots and lose sleep when you live in a community and there's people you love and you care about, and you could be spending time loving and caring for them. And fine, that doesn't mean nobody should ever do anything. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we don't know, and do your best and live your life. And ultimately, like, maybe it was meant to happen, maybe the idea that we can exert control and stop these things is actually making us spiritually sick and isn't good for us. I don't know. I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do with their lives. I'm just saying that is not where I'm at with my life, is like trying to stop shadowy forces. I can
compartmentalize it for a time, but then I'll start to go back and go, oh my God, if we could just wake up enough humans, we could, maybe people would realize what we're causing all this.
Here's the thing, and I think partially this comes from, I'm not trying to say I've had a hard life or anything, but I've been through some pretty hard things. And I think when you go through a hard thing and you think, oh my God, this is terrible, how am I ever going to recover from it? And then you do, and you do it over and over again, then you're like, you learn that the struggle to resist the thing that you're scared of is often worse and then going through that thing. And perhaps we needed to go through that thing to become what we're going to be. And I do just deeply believe that there's cataclysmic events happen throughout all of history. If we can eliminate human suffering, good. And the idea that it can be avoided altogether, maybe it actually gets us to a worse place, And I listen, I don't want to talk about politics at all, but I live in a very liberal city, and I know so many people who are just so upset by everything that's happening right now in the country. And like, you could spend days just like pointing to things that are bad, and I'm not going to disagree with anybody. And what if we need to go through this to get to the other side? What if the alternative of trying to prevent this from happening would have resulted in something much worse? I don't know. I can't prove it. All I can tell you is that I'm not going to struggle and put my energy in to trying to think that I know so much, that like I know more than whatever. No, I don't. I'm trying. I think that we are in a waking up process, and part of that waking up comes from all this feedback we're getting of things that aren't working. And like, so I don't know. That was a little bit of a rant, but
no, that's a good place to, we've taken time. We're at time here. So that was wonderful. Because, yeah, the fear itself is going to just offset all the mitigating you're doing for all that bioaccumulation of crap that's happening to us. Just going to cancel it out if you're going to live in fear, right? So, yeah. So we always ask our signature question, and it's usually, what does quantum healthy mean to you? But we want to put a little spin on it and ask, like, what's a quantum athlete? What's a healthy quantum athlete look like? Since we've been so focused on them this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, it has to go back to the circadian stuff for the athletes, because that's going to be the biggest needle mover. Now, if I was an athlete, I would go beyond that. I would make sure that I've got my training facility, I've got the house near the training facilities, right? Close enough that I can commute to it, but hopefully far enough away that you're slightly in a residential, like almost like rural-ish area, so you're away from the toxins of the city. But then when I'm not there, I've got a home like off the grid somewhere, and I spend as much time as I can there, just because I view the athletic environment as a toxic environment. It's a hazardous work environment, and it's like if you work in a coal mine or something, it's that bad. And you're an athlete, you have the money and you have the flexibility of schedule when you're not competing to do whatever you need to do. So then you just focus on that cellular hydration and the building of the easy water and all those things. You make sure that you are just mitochondria as healthy as possible, so that when you enter that hazardous environment, you are as resilient as you can be. And then you do things to mitigate the exposure when you're in there. And it's like I said, go spend 20,000 on the biggest, fanciest molecular hydrogen machine you can get. Buy yourself a Thor red light bed that costs $100,000 and use it for 5 minutes every morning. Those are the kind of things that you got the $1 million salary, and you can either spend it now on the things that are going to keep you healthy, or you're going to spend it later in life on you being unwell, right? So it's an investment, and it's going to pay off really, really well.
Love that answer.
Yeah. How so Peter, tell us the name of your Substack for one, because people should read your essays to get the full. I mean, we've captured some here, right? But there's so much more in your essays, and they keep coming. So
and there's going to be more. It's peteranthonycowan.substack.com. But I actually, in the process of writing the last article, the fact checking was so rigorous that I wrote software to help with the fact checking. So I can actually publish quicker now. And
oh my gosh.
I've got level. I've got a pretty big one coming up with something specific to Oregon, though the story is everywhere, but the effect is everywhere. The story is specific to Oregon. I've got a follow-up to the 49ers thing coming, and might actually have a documentary getting made about it. It's all going to be on the Substack. I've got a guest journalist writing more about the Havana syndrome. He's got a legitimate scoop that hasn't been covered yet. So there's going to be some good stuff. I'm hopefully going to be writing a lot more.
Oh, that's great.
Great to hear.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay. So people will find you there. Is that the main place? Do you have anything?
Yeah. I mean, you can find me on X. You can find me on I don't really do too much on Instagram. I need to change that. I do have my Sunlight platform. Sunlightis.life. And that's just a whole host of tools. Anything you want regarding sun, like it's going to tell you what time of day to get your UV, what time of day to tan, where to find the sun. If you're traveling, you don't know which way the sunrise is going to come. And then it gets even into like more advanced circadian stuff, like meal timing, temperature, when to work out, rest and recovery. It's got a lot of educational material. Most of it's free. You can sign up with your email address to get more features, and eventually I'll charge for the premium features.
And where do we find that?
Just go to sunlightis.life.
Sunlight. Okay.
And I'll put all these links in the show notes.
Okay. Perfect.
Have them right below in the episode.
All right. Okay. Well, just a few ways to say thanks, Peter. I have collected. First, your health journey. You've been through some things. It sounds like you said, you had to pick yourself back up, and you've been through the ringer a few times, unfortunately. Thanks for being a fan of the San Francisco 49ers, or this article probably never would have come out.
Yeah.
Thanks for your curiosity to take the readings, and your duty to document them as a citizen scientist, and most important, your courage and resilience to handle the criticism from the legacy media that you've had along the way, from the global EMF community of researchers. Thank you for sparking a much needed current global conversation on the environmental health issues that are really overlooked by mainstream media on non-native EMFs. And just, you mentioned it today, and I'm so glad you did. I feel like you're like a modern Aaron Brockovich, who's not fighting, not just fighting for hexavalent, to save hexavalent chromium from the town, but you're fighting for these athletes. And I really do hope at the end of the day that they thank you in the end for having the courage to even think about this, and really to connect those dots with MCAS. I'm just blown away and fascinated by that. And I can't wait to read more of your Substack. So thank you so much for your time today too.
Well, thank you. I think that's the kindest thing anybody has said to me on any podcast. I really appreciate it.
That means a lot.
Thank you, Peter, for being here. And thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to the Quantum Healthy podcast. We hope you found some value in this information. And if you feel inspired, please share it and leave us a 5-star review. This will help us reach so many more people. If you want to connect with Laura, you can find her at laurakissmannwellness.com and Andeea at andeearay.com. Links are below in the show notes. Now, go find some sunlight and embrace your own quantum healthy.